Welcome everybody, day 2 of the Delaware Economic Summit. We're here to talk today about the Port of Wilmington, but I'm going to start with something slightly, well, related, but not exactly. Anyone here go to any food trucks in Delaware? So I like Koi on the Go. They park outside DCCA. They have these great fish tacos, and I was looking at them on Twitter the other day to figure out where they were that day, because they weren't at the DCCA, and said that they were at the Port of Wilmington. And I said, you know, I love these fish tacos so much. I work on the riverfront. I'll drive over the Port of Wilmington. And then I realized I had no idea where the Port of Wilmington is, despite the fact that I have lived in Delaware for 10 years and know where the water is in general, but I didn't know where the port was. I looked it up. It was about 2 miles from where I was, but by that point I was pizza was there, so I think that someday. We're here today to talk about the Port of Wilmington, its impact locally, and how it affects the national and international business that comes to Delaware. And I'm joined by, at this point, 2 folks to talk about it. To my immediate left, Tom Keefer, Deputy Executive Director of the Delaware State Port Corporation. He's the Chief Marketing Officer, responsible for business development, contract and lease negotiations. And as a maritime transportation executive, he's experience in operations, marketing, financial analysis, loss prevention, and physical security, which I imagine is very important in the port industry in the United States these days. Absolutely. He also graduated from the United States Naval Academy, so I wouldn't mess with him. On my further left, Rebecca Faber, President and CEO of the World Trade Center Delaware, a small nonprofit focusing on helping companies navigate the international trade process. She serves on the Mid-Atlantic District Export Council, is a member of the Board of Directors of the Port of Wilmington Maritime Society, and the Newcastle County Economic Development Council. So we thank them both for coming today. I think you guys both have presentations to start with, and then we'll sort of do questions from me, and hopefully mostly from you. Which one of you has the presentation load first?
I do.
Of course.
I do, man.
Good. All right, I'll
I'll just stand up if you don't mind and hop off this stage so I can see the presentation as we chat. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Delaware the Blue Rock Financial Group for the invitation this morning, and appreciate you all pressing on through this ugly weather this morning to be here at this bright and early hour. My presentation is for you, and I just wanted to give you just a brief overview of, so when you leave here, you have a better understanding of what the Port of Wilmington is all about, how important it is to the region, what our strengths, competitive strengths are, and why it's important, why the Port of Wilmington is important, not only for the Newcastle County area, but for the entire state of Delaware. And as I said, this is for you, so if at any point along the presentation you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask. As you may know, well, jumping ahead a little bit, the port was opened in 1923, the first time. As a matter of fact, we have some structures at the Port of Wilmington that date back to the original opening of the port. We're slowly replacing those, but we still have a few docks, for example, a few wharf structures that date back to 1923. So we've gotten our money's worth out of them. In 1995, the state bought the port from the city of Wilmington. The reason was pretty obvious. The city just didn't have enough financial wherewithal to continue to fund the port, particularly for capital expenses, capex as we say. And so an arrangement was made to transfer ownership. At the same time, the Diamond State Port Corporation was established. And I'm an employee of the Diamond State Port Corporation and not an employee of the state. So we've all heard this axiom, you know, you can't be half pregnant, but you really can in this environment. We're part a state employee and part Diamond State Port Corporation. And usually when it's something to be, if being a state employee is something to be good, we're not. And if it's bad, then we are. That's usually the way it works. But anyway, it's been, we were established in 1995, and we have, as a corporation, as a port corporation, a little bit different than our neighbors up the river, in that we have a multitude of roles. We are a landlord, like a lot of port authorities are. We actually lease land to tenants. We're also an operating port, which allows us to have some fun, to generate some business, and to have more control over the direction of the port, and especially in the financial area for the future. As you see there, we have no taxing or bond issuance authority. So the good news is the Port of Wilmington is cash flow positive on an EBITDA basis. However, for capital projects, we really need the state support. This has always been the case when the port was taken over by the state. There was always an understanding that for CapEx, the state of Delaware would have to step up and provide us with sources of funding. And I have to say they've been very, very good owners. As you can see, since 1995, they've invested over $187 million in the port. And we've been pretty good stewards of that money, and we've returned over $400 million in tax revenues during the same period. So it's a pretty good investment. We are extraordinarily advantaged here in the state of Delaware to be in such a small state. We have connectivity to our political leadership that very few ports have in the United States. To give you an example, we recently had some visitors come in from South Africa. And they called us on a Thursday and said we'll be there on Monday. In a couple of days, we were able to arrange meetings with the governor and meetings with the Senator Coons, and a meeting with the mayor. And that's something that was not lost on our South African customers. They really appreciated that and recognized the fact that that's not available in any other state or any other port where they do business. So we have this Delaware way, we have this Delaware connectivity. We can really aggregate or leverage our strengths to help develop additional business at the port. We do have a board. Some of you might have read in the press recently where there's a movement afoot in the legislature to increase the board size from its present 15 to 21, which is, obviously we're not supporting that. We're not in favor of that. 15 is plenty. We have 5 members of the governor's cabinet on that board. The rest are, we have a couple of legislators, the chair and co-chair of the Bond Bill Committee, and then some private citizens that make up the remainder of the board. To give you an example, the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, the 2 largest ports in the United States, they have, Port of LA I think has 5 commissioners, the Port of Long Beach has 4. So the Port of Wilmington have 21 is really questionable why we need that many folks providing direction here at the Port of Wilmington. But anyway, that's up for further discussion. Some metrics for you. We do about 400 ship arrivals a year, about 5 million tons, which is pretty significant. Annual revenue, about 36 million, that's gross. As I mentioned, we're a landlord, but also a terminal operator. We actually have the way we do business with the Port of Wilmington is the cargo, we have 2 independent stevedoring companies, and they either load or discharge cargo from ships. And then we have terminal labor, which is part of the ILA, and they move the cargo from under the ship's tackle or when they put it on the dock to a point of rest either in one of our warehouses or in outdoor storage areas. Economic impact is significant. 5,200 family-sustaining regional jobs associated with the port. 384 million in annual business revenue, 340 in personal income, 340 million, and 36 million in annual regional tax revenue. These numbers come from a private economic research company, Martin Associates, and their last economic impact study was done in 2011, and we have the tools to update annually based on our revenue and tonnage. Yes, sir.
5,200 jobs, that's impressive. That's a large employment footprint. Are they blue-collar jobs, middle-class jobs? Where are they falling in jobs?
I would say that probably they're 60% to 70%, maybe even 80% blue-collar jobs. They come with good wages, benefits, including health care and retirement benefits. So, yeah, these are important jobs for the region for sure.
Part of what we talked about yesterday was, where will the manufacturing jobs come from? Where are the blue-collar jobs going to come from? Where are the lower middle-class jobs going to come from in the future with the economists? And it's nice to see that there's over 5,000 jobs in that space that provides a good bit of company. Hopefully it'll grow.
Yeah, and these jobs are not going anywhere. They're not going to go to China, they're not going to go to Southeast Asia, Malaysia, any place like that. They're going to stay here as long as we continue to bring business into the port, as long as we continue to have a very favorable trade environment in the United States. I'll show you just some of these pictures may be interesting to you. This is a shot on the Christina River. This vessel was carrying wind turbine blades. You can see them loaded on deck. Shot on one of our warehouses. Since the state has taken over the Port of Wilmington and did the acquisition, they've built, 4 different warehouses for us, 3 refrigerated warehouses and 1 dry warehouse. These are really critical to our business because we are a niche port with our focus on perishable cargo. Here's an overview of our footprint. Just to orient you, that's going south towards the Atlantic Ocean, north towards Philadelphia. Delaware River, the Christina River. We're served by the Norfolk Southern direct rail connection to the port. There's a line, a spur that comes off of the main line onto the port. We also have service with CSXT. They have switching rights onto the port, so we have good rail service. We also are, from a geographical standpoint, we're the first port on the river. We're very close to Interstate 495, so we tell our customers when customers leave the port, when truckers leave the port of Wilmington, they don't hit another traffic light until they're getting off the interstate highway going to their final destination, which is a big deal because in many other ports they've got to go a circuitous route through city streets, through neighborhoods, through lots of traffic to get to the interstate highway system. And truckers are very strictly controlled the number of hours that they can drive. So the amount of time that they spend in traffic or waiting to be loaded counts against their drive time, which if they're delayed anyway, just adds to the cost of their service to their customer and makes those ports less competitive. We have 7 general cargo ports on the Christina River. Excuse me, Matt, if I can change that with my laser. This is an idea of we have 6 refrigerated warehouses up at the port. These are immediately adjacent to the berths. This is a warehouse here, we call it Old B, because I think it's been around since maybe not 1923, but not so long after that. But we also have some new warehouses that have been built. It gives us we have the largest amount of on-dock, on-terminal cold storage capacity in the United States.
Do you still have Dole?
We do have Dole, and we also have Chiquita. So on this footprint, Chiquita has about 27 acres of land, which we, as I mentioned, we're a landlord, so we've leased them some land. Chiquita is right next door to them with 40 acres. That way they can look at each other, count the number of containers that come off of each ship, and figure out how many bananas each are importing. Having Dole and Chiquita at the Port of Wilmington really makes us the top banana in North America. We do more bananas than any other port in the United States. And actually we're number 2 in the world. So that's pretty amazing. So what does that mean? Well, you probably see these containers rolling down a highway that say Dole or Chiquita on the side. Each one of those containers has 1,000 40-pound boxes of bananas inside. And, okay, so that's 1,000 boxes. Each week, we get between 1,600 and 1,700 of those 40-foot containers discharged at the Port of Wilmington. So just, you do the math, you can figure out how many bananas, and then someone asks, well, how many bananas are in a box, a 40-pound box? I won't go into that, the math on that today. But it's a lot of activity, a lot of volume. So these bananas go as far north as Canada, Montreal, and Toronto, as far west as Chicago, and as far south as North Carolina. So the Port of Wilmington is really feeding a good part of the United States. And we just closed the deal with Dole at the end of 2013, which will keep them at the port for the next 15 years. So that's a big accomplishment for us because we were under intense pressure from competitors across the river to move their business. We also built with state funding, we built an auto berth on the Delaware River, and that was completed in 2002. And that's the price to stay in the automotive business, automotive export business. Another perspective of the port just shows the berths that we have along the Christina River, Delaware River. The container terminal spots here that you see are for Dole and Chiquita. The yellow blocks are the refrigerated warehouses, the orange ones are the dry warehouses. One thing I did mention, we do have a petroleum berth here, and all the Wawa gasoline for all the stations that you see in our region, all that gasoline comes to the Port of Wilmington. Tankers call at the port on a regular basis, discharging refined petroleum products. And we have an easement agreement with Magellan Midstream Partners, who has an oil terminal which is adjacent to the port. And all that oil, all that gasoline is pumped from the petroleum berth underground to these storage tanks adjacent to the port.
Room for expansion.
No. No. I mean, we do, this area here is dredge disposal areas. We have to dredge the Christina River routinely, probably sometimes twice a year because of silting. And what we dredge up is mostly sand, real fine sand. And we have to have a place to put it, so we put it here. This is about 125 acres. This belongs to the port, but because the dredging is required, we had to give that land over to the Army Corps of Engineers, and they maintain that. So if we're looking to expand, that's an area we can expand to. If we can find an alternative location for the dredge material.
Exchange.
We also have a 60-acre parcel here, this is the Delaware Solid Waste Authority facility. And this is an abandoned landfill. And it's about 60 acres of land that can be developed. One of the best uses of that land is probably for automotive storage because of the stability of the substrate. But it's an expensive proposition. Probably to build that, to build it just to store automobiles and process them is probably a $40 million project. We have looked at building one of the Delaware River, building a container terminal by filling in this land along the Delaware. And to construct a 125-acre container terminal is between $400 to $500 million. So, otherwise, we're pretty much landlocked here. We have 308 acres, and we have about 40 acres of land of semi-improved land we use for
Did you
storage.
dig that up?
Cargo.
I did that up.
I'm sorry?
I did that up.
Oh, okay. I think I hit most of these. 800,000 square feet of cold storage and 6 warehouses, again, makes us the largest in the United States. The entire port is a foreign trade zone for customers that need that. For example, we have Citrasuco, who built their first orange juice terminal in the United States at the Port of Wilmington about 25 years ago, and they make extensive use of the foreign trade zone. Just a quick overview of our products that we handle. Fresh fruit, of course, is key to us. That's really our niche, is the fresh fruit business. We're the largest port in the United States for the importation of fresh fruit. We do between 1.5 to 1.7 million tons a year. So for a little port like Wilmington, we lead the nation in several areas, in several trade areas. The number one banana port, as I mentioned, number one for fresh fruit, the number one port for Moroccan clementine, Moroccan citrus, coming to the United States, and also the number one port for juice concentrates, apple, pear, and orange juice concentrates. This might interest you. This ship, this is the Citrasuco facility, which is at the edge of the port. That's the Christine, and then you have the Delaware here. Citrasuco has built tankers just to carry orange juice concentrates. They're like oil tankers, the only thing is loaded up with juice. And most recently, they've built a couple of new ships which can actually carry fresh orange juice. So fresh, I'm not sure how long I'm not sure what the law is about how long it can be classified as fresh, but it's not from concentrate, so it just goes right into storage tanks. It's kept very, very safe, closely monitored by USDA and the FDA, and then it's transported around the United States in these. You may see these big tank trucks that are silver in color, look really, really nice and clean. That's what's carrying orange juice from the port. We do containerized cargo as well. Dole and Chiquita, all the containers, all the bananas and pineapples that come to the port are in these 40-foot containers. Also, some fruit from Chile comes up in containers as well. Automobiles, pardon me, we have been handling General Motors exports to the Middle East for over 30 years. We also do used automobiles to West Africa. And we do other things as well, project cargo, dry and liquid bulk. We do steel imports from Sweden. We're doing a good number of steel products from Russia for the Everest Claymont facility up in Claymont before they stopped operating. We also do scrap exports and some coal exports. The Port of Wilmington is also a spaceport, believe it or not. We have, for about 3 years now, we've been handling rocket booster cores, which are associated with the resupply of the International Space Station. As you know, the space shuttle program has been retired, and now private companies are supplying space vehicles for NASA. There's two operators. There's SpaceX, which is one of the competitors, and our company is Orbital Sciences, and they bring in these rocket booster cores from the Ukraine. Hopefully that will continue. Western Ukraine, and they're trucked down to Wallops Island in Virginia, and there they're assembled on with the rest of the rocket and launched. They've already had a couple of missions. One was a trial, the other was actual link up with the space station where they supplied, I think, 3,000 pounds of various food products and things like this to resupply the station. So this is an ongoing project. We'll probably receive 4 to 5 of these shipments a year. And this unit here is about 150 feet long and about 15 feet high. And some of you may have heard about our involvement with livestock. We actually, last year we handled 50,000 head of pregnant Holstein heifers, which were exported from Wilmington primarily to Turkey, to Russia, and to other to Jordan, some Middle East countries. This business has been going on about 4 or 5 years now, and the animals are carried in specially configured vessels just so they remain safe. They're sent to these overseas destinations for herd replenishment, not for slaughter or anything like that. So it's an ongoing business. We also did some work with Victory Brewing Company. They sent some brewery tanks from Germany to the Port of Wilmington. They're expanding their brewing operation in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, these tanks were empty when they came ashore, so we're told we're going to get invited to the grand opening. So some competitive advantages. Our location is great. We tell our customers, we can supply 200 million consumers with overnight truck delivery from the Port of Wilmington, which is pretty impressive. Because that, customers want to ship their cargo to where the people are, where the consumers are. Because we handle so much perishable cargo, we have to be experts in the handling in food safety issues, which we are. And we've got our own IT department at the port, and they continually amaze me with their IT applications. And we've been recognized by many customers because, as we develop, as trade develops, as transportation logistics develop, there's more reliance on IT to simplify our job, to make it less complex, to reduce the redundancies. And our team has done a marvelous job in continuing to update and upgrade our software and the different applications. In summary, as you can see from the presentation, the Port of Wilmington is really an economic engine for the state of Delaware and for the region. We have leadership positions in key perishable cargo segments. We've got excellent labor at the port. We all know what kind of terrible weather we've had this year. And other ports north of us, south of us closed because of snow, because of cold weather. However, the Port of Wilmington stayed open through all these storms and frigid temperatures. And that's a tribute to the labor that works at the port. We've got a very excellent labor force, and I think that's one of the key things that gives us a competitive advantage. We've got a diversified cargo mix. Again, it helps us because some business goes up. Obviously, each business has its own business cycle. To give you an example, in 2009, when the economy was in trouble, the Port of LA and Long Beach, their container volume dropped 40% year over year. Our container volume dropped 4% during that same period. So we have a different mix of cargo. It's certainly not as volatile, and it sort of serves as a good stable platform for our business. We have multimodal logistics capability, a lot of one-dock warehouse space, a good IT shop, and our tagline is the Port of Personal Service. And I think that's what really differentiates us from a lot of other ports. We take a team approach when we need to do some business. We sit down with our customers, we sit down with other service providers at the port and try to work out a solution that will help them be more efficient and more productive at our port. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make this presentation, and certainly open for questions.
I'll go to the other
Okay.
folks, and then we'll take questions.
Good. Thank you.
Chief, we'll try that again. Mark's president of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce for the past 8 years, leading one of the county's largest business trade organizations with over 1,500 members. Among the initiatives he's taken, he's expanded Chamber's economic development activities a great deal, establishing a small business incubator program called the Emerging Enterprise Center. So, part of what we're talking about today in terms of economic development. And we go with Rebecca. Rebecca.
All right, good morning and welcome. I'm just going to stay up here if everybody can hear me okay. I told some folks earlier this morning, on the first half of my presentation, I've broken the cardinal rule of PowerPoint, which is boring data points, but I think they're important in the sense of framing Delaware's position currently in terms of international trade. So data for Delaware exports right now, just to give you a sense, manufactured goods exports are at $5.2 billion for 2013, which is a pretty sizable amount of money. Total jobs, this is again only manufactured goods, supporting 11,600. All jobs, 13,400. That's all exports, rather. I'm going to move through some of these quickly so that we have time for questions and time for Mark, but if you need any further explanations on anything, please stop me and let me know. Top markets for where we're exporting to: Belgium, Canada, United Kingdom, China, and the Netherlands. Again, pretty sizable amounts. What are we exporting? The biggest thing, of course, is chemicals, computers, electronic products, transportation equipment, petroleum and coal products, non-electrical machinery, and foodstuffs. Manufacturing, you mentioned the concern about manufacturing jobs earlier. It's obviously critical to our economy. It accounts for 95% of our exports right now. And we're doing pretty well since 2009, since the recession really hit everyone. Our exports have grown by 24.7%. And of course, it sort of makes sense if you think about it. For years before the recession hit, I've been trying to convince companies that have really cool products you really should export. There are markets for these overseas, and they're like, we'll think about it. At some point. The minute the recession hit, all of a sudden companies thought, wow, I really need to consider diversifying my markets. And so exports have been increasing steadily since then, which is nice to see. It's critical for small businesses. Small businesses comprise 86% of Delaware's exports. A little on free trade agreements. They get a bad rap sometimes. Just a really important point here. In 2013, manufacturers in the United States sold over $59 billion more in manufactured goods to our free trade agreement partners than we bought from them. So the notion that when we have these free trade agreements, we're opening up for more imports and it's sending jobs everywhere, and it's really not accurate. On the flip side of that, we had a manufacturing trade deficit of $508 billion in countries where there were no free trade agreements. So it's really important to look at all the data. Foreign investment, again, in the 80s it was Japan's taking over the country, and recently we've heard a lot about Chinese companies buying here. Delaware jobs are, 29,000 Delaware jobs are supported by foreign-controlled companies. The majority of these are from, not China, but the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands. Those are the top four. Going in the wrong direction. Services exports are a big part of the U.S. economy, but also of Delaware's economy, obviously. The U.S. is the largest services provider, services exporter in the world, and in Delaware, the service exports account for more jobs than manufacturing exports. Some of that data is very difficult to track. I wasn't able to pull up a chart. This is data from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Manufacturing exports data is easier to track because they can do all the documentation for the things that are being shipped. Services aren't being shipped, so some of that's harder to pull. But if anybody would like the actual data and sources, I'm happy to talk to you outside of this. On imports, another thing that get a bad rap. Just for the record, World Trade Center Delaware supports companies that are importing, and we're here to help you do it. But imports also create jobs. Tom talked about fresh fruit at the port. But the majority of those 5,000 plus jobs are dealing a lot of those are dealing with fresh fruit imports, the juice imports, petroleum. You've got a lot of things coming into the port that are being supported by imports. We import a lot of raw materials, which contribute to manufacturing jobs. Some of those things are sold here, some of those things are manufactured into things and then re-exported. A lot of consumer goods, which account for retail jobs. So the majority of what we're importing are things like machinery, industrial supplies, and materials that are either not produced in the US or not available in sufficient quantity. Let me be clear also, because there's always somebody who brings this up. Just because we support imports does not mean we support unfair working environments overseas. In essence, trade equals greater opportunity. I think we're all aware of this. So the point of today is how can you get in on this, and can you? And the answer is yes. For a lot of people, international trade, at first you think, great, I'm going to sell stuff overseas or I'm going to import stuff, and then you start getting into the details. It's like, whoa, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to stay on top of, and how am I even going to manage this? So there are a lot of resources that are available to you. The state of Delaware has an Office of International Trade and Corporate Development that we work very closely with. They're the public sector side. We're the private sector side. The U.S. Commercial Service has an office in Philadelphia that covers Delaware. They're down here regularly. And they have commercial service officers and embassies around the world that we also work with very closely. They're an excellent resource, and they provide what they call a gold key service, in which if you've got a product and you've determined a market that you want to sell it in, they can, for a fee, match you up with people who are very likely to buy your product. So they'll handhold you through the entire process of visiting with potential partners and meeting with them and setting up those deals. The Small Business Administration obviously is a great resource for any of you that have started your own companies. They also have resources in terms of export financing and things around financing of your export business. Let me point out that most of the government programs typically work with exporters. The government likes to support exporting. It's termed as better for jobs and that sort of thing, and importing isn't always politically popular. As I said, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's not good for our economy. As a private sector organization, we do a lot with importers, so there are resources available for that too. The Small Business Technology and Development Center is a great resource, not so much for the international side, but for continuing to develop your business or getting to the point where you can scale to be able to serve an increased demand in your product. Other great resources are the local chambers. Mark's going to tell you more about what the Newcastle County Chamber does. Again, a great support network for companies as they're growing. SCORE is also excellent. Many of you are familiar with SCORE and their retired executives, many of whom are familiar with importing and exporting. And the one organization I didn't put up there, and I should have, is the Delaware Manufacturers Extension Partnership. Again, critical for any manufacturer that is looking to scale their business so that they can meet an increased demand in products, which is often one of the biggest challenges. All of a sudden, you've determined a market, you've found potential buyers, and now somebody sends you a huge order, and you're like, "Whoa! I don't know if I can supply this in the time that they need it." So, who are we? World Trade Center. Everybody thinks of the Twin Towers. We are actually an international organization or association of World Trade Centers. There are about 340 around the world in different locations. They're all owned and operated differently. They can be public sector, private sector. Some are owned by governments, some are owned by chambers of commerce, others universities, other real estate developers, private individuals. There's a wide range of business models. It is not a franchise. You purchase a license to use the brand and to be able to use the logo. And the reason to do this is to be part of this incredible network of 340 World Trade Centers around the world, 340 resources, which in turn serve over, I think, between 800,000 and 1 million companies around the world who are members of the individual World Trade Centers. Some of the World Trade Centers you'll see are incredible buildings. The Twin Towers is an example of the real estate model where they're housing international businesses and businesses that serve international businesses. The World Trade Center in Taipei is an exhibition center, so that's another example of a real estate function. The World Trade Center Baltimore, if you've been down to Inner Harbor, there's a tall building right there. It's the tallest octagonal building in the world. And so they have the real estate model. They also have the services model. About 60% of the World Trade Centers are service models, which is what we are. And the services, typically, we are nonprofit because it's not a profitable business. We're here essentially to assist small and medium-sized companies with any of their international business needs. So what do all the World Trade Centers have in common? We're all here to, in some way, whether you're hosting international trade exhibitions, meetings, facilitating delegations, or providing services, we're all here to in some way facilitate international business. And again, it's a great network of people that have contacts around the world. So what do we do specifically? First of all, we are located in downtown Wilmington. Do not drive around the city looking for the giant building. We're not in it. If you find one. We're in a small townhouse downtown as a nonprofit. We're a small organization with small staff, but we try to leverage our resources as much as possible to provide a large amount of services. Import assistance, export assistance, strategic consulting, educational programming, referral services, market guides. We can do research to help you determine the appropriate markets for your product. If you're trying to source a product, we can do research to determine the best places to source your product. We had somebody come to us recently who is currently importing chemical product from China. They're a little concerned that they're solely reliant on that supplier, and they're looking to diversify and find another supplier from somewhere else in the world. So that's the type of thing we can help with. We can also help companies determining what kind of export license they need, if they need an export license, what kind of classification do they need to ship their product overseas. We had a company that has a software product come to us, and they spent thousands of dollars with an international law firm to determine what kind of export license they needed and from what department of the U.S. government, because the government doesn't make it super clear when you go to the websites. And at the end of the report, the law firm had very carefully stipulated that they could do this option, or this option, or this option, which left the company still saying, well, exactly what's the best way to move forward. And the problem is that if you pick the wrong classification, the wrong type of license, you can be fined by the government. What we were able to do is walk them through the process, and as long as you document your decision making every time there's a decision to be made, you can cover yourself, and you've got evidence to go back to the government with if you made a wrong decision. So we were able to walk them through that for less than $1,000. So those are the examples. I get a lot of companies coming back to the notion of, can I do this? I get a lot of companies that come to us and say, what are the typical types of businesses we can that you see doing international business, either exporting or importing? And the truth is that in spite of the fact that I showed you the top things, chemicals and transportation equipment, the truth is that in Delaware we've got companies that are importing and exporting products and services across the board. So if you have something that you think has a value in another market, or you think that somebody else might be interested in buying, even if you're not sure, but you just think that maybe, or you're wondering, come to us and ask. What I can't do is I can't give you a list of all the products that are needed in a certain place so you can go out and get those, because if I had that list, I'd be doing it myself rather than running a nonprofit. But you'd be surprised at the number of people that come to us and say, just give me a list. The list doesn't really exist. But so to summarize, getting involved in international trade sometimes feels a little like this, right? So our goal here is to help you along the journey, along that process, make the right decisions. It's never going to be completely risk averse. There's always something that comes up. So as those things happen, the majority of the calls that we get are actually troubleshooting calls that companies in the middle of some kind of transaction, something is stuck in customs, or somebody needs a document that doesn't seem to exist, or any number of things. And we're able to help walk them through the process. If we don't know the answer to the question, we can generally, within 24 to 48 hours, find someone for them to talk with to help with them through the process. So, and eventually, you succeed. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
One question for you. So, unless you deal with the types of things that you deal with day in and day out, it's kind of tough to, make a connection. So, is it possible to give like a success story of a company that you helped in Delaware, and not necessarily using names or
Sure.
places, but kind of an example of a specific instance where you helped out a Delaware company?
So every time we work with a company, what we do is a little different. I just told you the story of the one company that had the licensing issue. We worked with a local manufacturer that's been in Delaware for years and has been exporting for years. We started working with them probably about 6 years ago. And one of the first things that we did was walk them through. They brought on a new person to handle their international sales. And for years they had outsourced it to a consultant who had been handling sales and kind of kept everything tight. And he was retiring and wasn't thrilled that he was being replaced. So he didn't provide a lot of, it was one of those weird situations. So we were walking this new person through the international sales process and how everything worked. And we did what we call value stream mapping, which is where we identify what happens within the company from the time the order comes in to the time that the order ships out and arrives at the destination. And in going through the process, and actually when you map it out, you can literally map out every single step and option. And if there are a couple of things that can happen, then you diverge. And in the process of going through that, what we discovered in looking at what the different taxes were and the shipping issues and the shipping terms that were being used, they were using the wrong shipping terms. There were some of their products that we discovered that were actually being sold at a loss, but no one realized it because of the way things were just being bundled. So we helped them change their pricing so that they weren't losing money. exporting actually became profitable. Their profits rose significantly. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they rose significantly over the next 3 years. We were also able to help them. We had an intern in our office from Colombia, and they were looking to open their Latin American markets. So we had the intern work with them and assist with some of the communication and relationship building. So that's one example. I thought of one a moment ago, and I just forgot what it was slightly different. But no, it's left me. But essentially, if there's an issue, our job is there to help you troubleshoot it. Sort of the one-stop shop. What do I do? Yeah.
Rebecca, you mentioned that there are multiple World Trade Centers around the world. Is there a benefit or a need to be a member of more than one?
That's a great question. Thank you, and I should have mentioned that. No. In fact, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the reciprocal relationship among World Trade Centers. It doesn't mean that you get all these services for free. We are a membership-based organization. Every World Trade Center I mentioned has their own rules. But a member of one World Trade Center is entitled to the member benefits at any other World Trade Center around the world, which includes Philadelphia and Baltimore, which are very nearby. In Delaware, we tend to hold smaller, more intimate, kind of hands-on programs. Just because of the market here, there's less people really to draw from that are involved in any specific area of business. And so we actively market the larger conferences and things that Baltimore and Philadelphia do, because our members can go there and be entitled to the same member discount. In the same token, the state of Delaware had a mission to Brazil last week and the first part of this week, and I was able to reach out to the World Trade Center in Sao Paulo to assist one of the companies there. So that's the type of thing. We've done the same thing for other companies doing business in Eastern Europe and Asia. I will say that while we work a lot with the World Trade Center network, we also work a lot with the U.S. Department of Commerce. We work with American Chambers of Commerce that are all around the world, private consultants, other private business people, anybody that we've developed a relationship over the last 15 years or so. Because, as many of you know, in business, it comes down to the person who's doing whatever it is to help you. In the case of the U.S. Commercial Service, I said they're a phenomenal resource, but if you look at the person who's handling all the U.S. companies that want to do business in China, they've got a lot of stuff on their desk. So in that sense, the state of Delaware has a guy that used to work for the state of Delaware and was paid to assist Delaware companies in China. He's still somebody that we maintain a close relationship with, and he still is available to work with Delaware companies. So in situations like that, if somebody's interested in doing business in China, rather than go the World Trade Center route, which is more commercial real estate based over there, or the U.S. Commercial Service, I know that Jeffrey is going to take very personal care of anybody that I send him to. So we make those decisions in terms of referrals very carefully based on relationships.
So let's get to Mark for a couple minutes, and then we'll just take a couple more questions so we don't run out of time.
Sure. Thank you. We kind of start with kind of tying something together with Tom and Rebecca talked about. And one of the first chambers of commerce in the country was the Charleston, South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. And why they came about is a group of businessmen in Charleston wanted to export, but they couldn't do it individually. So collectively, they basically went in and rented a ship and sent product back to Europe. And that really became popular and caused the growth of that chamber in Charleston. But it was kind of a coming together of a port and trade. And so that's sort of how one chamber got started here in the United States. A lot hasn't changed since that time. I think the role of chambers of commerce are pretty straightforward, at least in my view, and that's to bring businesses together and to help them grow. And our chamber, our focus is pretty straightforward. We sum it up in 3 words. We are our membership organization. Also, we have about 1,500 members, but our focus again, 3 words: connect, save, and grow. How can we help our members connect with their next customer? How can we help them save money in operations? How can we help them grow? But also, how can we help grow the local economy? And I guess part of what we wanted to talk about today is how do you all get a piece of the pie? How do you get in on the action? Let me talk a little bit about a little bit different start. Talk about regionalism a little bit and opportunities that are in the region, and kind of draw that out into the international area too. We are in a very, very vibrant community here with Greater Philadelphia, and then the Mid-Atlantic Marketplace. The 11 county region that we call Greater Philadelphia has a group called Select Greater Philadelphia, which is kind of a subset of the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. And their focus is to market the 11 county region to the United States and to the world. And they do a lot of good activities to reach out to companies to help bring them here. They're kind of like the regional DIDO, if you will. We're a member of that organization. We're the southernmost county here, Newcastle County. And we do a lot with them. But to just give you a sense of how big that market is and how big the opportunity is we all know New York is the mega market in the United States. But if you look at New York and you do a 200-mile radius, it encompasses about 49 million people with a total income of $1.5 trillion. So there's a lot of activity there. But the second largest market in the United States is Philadelphia. When you do that same 200-mile circle, it's more of a crescent, I guess, because it doesn't count when you go out into the ocean. But that's 46 million people in the Philly marketplace with a combined total income of $1.4 trillion. So there's a lot of buying power there. And one of the things that people don't realize is chambers of commerce, we do promote the local community and support the local businesses. But the other reality is this, is business does not stop at the state line. I'm sure a lot of you, all in companies you work for or your own individual businesses, you do business across the state line. And if you think about how close proximity we are to Philadelphia, and we're part of that marketplace, it's great opportunities to grow your business and focus on that. The key thing about growing business, and this goes not just for regional or international, but primarily local, is know your market and know your customer. And people tend to do business with people they know. It's just common sense. So having a network of people and organizations that will help grow your business, but also expand your horizons to new opportunities. So that's why we're involved with the region here in Philadelphia. Tom talked a lot about the port, but also the project, the deepening of the Delaware River was a big political deal, and it's still not done yet. But the three states, for the most part, cooperated to try to move that forward in the deepening. There are multiple ports on the Delaware River. They all benefit from the deepening. Port of Wilmington's the first one that comes along, so it's actually a bigger benefit for us to get that done. So that's something that we were pretty supportive of to make happen. And clearly there's always a lot of environmental issues and concerns that come up with that. So you look at the region, and the way that you can become more involved, and Rebecca kind of hit on it too, is being involved with those other organizations, other chambers of commerce. And you may say, that sounds odd. Local chamber president is talking about looking out at other chambers of commerce, but we are all in this together in the regional economy. And the other chambers, the Delco Chamber, the Bucks County, the chambers in New Jersey, there's great access to find new clients, new business. In addition to that, there are a ton of country-specific chambers of commerce that do a lot of events. The Italian-American Chamber, the Irish-American, British Chamber, the Turkish Chamber, and they have operations in Philadelphia. Most of them are actually housed and partnered with the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. And it's funny, in talking to a lot of these chambers, their country-specific chambers of commerce, their footprint includes the state of Delaware. And you hold that event a couple times a year, don't you? Somebody does.
We work with the Chilean Chamber.
And they have the different chambers come down. So that would be a great one to keep your eye on, because most, I call them the ethnic chambers, but they come down and it gives you an opportunity to understand what they do and meet people. And it gives you that entree. And again, think of that concept. People do business with people they know. And the more you know, the more business you do. And that kind of goes for a country too. So you need to be doing your research and understand where you can get that information. A couple specific things that we do at the Newcastle County Chamber. For the last 5 years, we've been running international trips. They're not trade missions per se, but they're more familiarization tours. So we can give our members opportunities to go and see other countries and meet with business people in those countries. The places we've gone to China. This year will be our 5th year that we're going to China. And we usually have about 30 to 40 folks that go on the trip. It's a very well organized trip. It's wildly affordable for 9 days. It's $2,300 all in. But included with that, if you are interested, you can meet the company. We work with the National Chamber Association that packages it up, and that's why it's so inexpensive. But they'll also pair you up, or if you wanted to meet a counterpart in a particular industry, or meet somebody over there who had an interest in doing business back in the States, they'll do that for you. We had a kind of a funny story. We had one gentleman one year, the year I went on the trip, he wanted to talk with somebody about medical devices. So the company Syslink, they're out of Anaheim, California. They set up this meeting with the group in I guess we're in Beijing. And we go into the meeting, and the guys are really, how we're going to be able to communicate. We go and talk to the guy. He goes, "Hi, my name's Dave. I graduated from Drexel." He's Chinese, national. And you're like, "Oh, we came like 6,000 miles to meet a guy from Drexel." But the interesting thing is, a lot of the Chinese will send their children, and they're moving away from this one-child law, but they save up all the money, literally, not just mom and dad, but the whole family, and they educate the child here in the States, and then they go back. But what they go back with is the ties, and they're looking for that familiarity. And in this instance, we had a guy who was involved with medical devices that went to Drexel, right up the street in Philadelphia, which I just thought was kind of phenomenal. So the familiarization tours are something that we've done, we continue to do. Other places that we've gone to Italy. Last year we went to Cuba, which was very interesting. We worked through the U.S. Treasury Department for a special program for a special visa to go. And a lot of opportunity in Cuba. Cuba had a Chamber of Commerce, or Havana, which I found kind of ironic, because I'm like, why? You go about the Cuban government. But it used, before it was taken over in the 60s, Cuba was a very vibrant market. It will still be again. The proximity to Miami is just ridiculous. It's a 40-minute plane ride. But when Cuba opens up, it's going to have phenomenal consumer opportunities for the United States. And when you're in Cuba, unlike China, you see a lot of American companies in China. In Cuba, there wasn't a one, except when we got some restaurants, you start seeing things like, because no U.S. company can import it
Well, we can actually export agricultural goods,
but not the produce, or not the
not consumer goods.
consumer goods. But what we started to see is a lot of American companies start to pop up. Then you look at the label; it was they're Canadian division. So businesses figure out how to get to other companies. So so we do that this year. We're doing, like I said, China again, and Portugal, Spain is the other trip that we have. So those are opportunities that we're having to try and educate our members about opportunities that will be out there to know more about those countries. The other thing that we have set up, we do have the Emerging Enterprise Center, which is a small business incubator program. And the idea there is to help early stage companies that are 3 years old or younger to get started, or more correctly, to succeed faster. And our goal is we charge them a low market rent. They get a ton of services. They get a fax machine, a mail machine, a receptionist, a water cooler, refrigerator, free coffee, meeting space, internet connectivity, and a phone with a dial tone, unlimited usage, although we do cap the international calls a wee bit. But they get all that. They get a 6-month lease. We give them a mentor. We work with them. They have to submit a work plan of 6-month increments, and we keep them for 2 years, and we help them grow. So that's the format of the program. The other element that we've added in the last couple of years is something we call the International Soft Landing Program, where we're looking for companies that we may have met on a familiarization tour to come to the United States and set up shop here in Delaware at the Newcastle County Chamber as part of this incubator program. And what they get is they get those same basic services, but they also get a little bit more because they need a lot more hand-holding, if you will, to understand what their opportunities are and challenges. And we probably have to call Rebecca to say, how do I move forward with certain areas here? And we're starting to work a lot closer to the Chamber and the World Trade Center on kind of grow this program. To date, we've had 2 companies. We call them, they're not tenants, we call them companies in residence. So we've had actually 25 companies participate, and we've been able to help them create about 95 jobs through this program over the last 5 years. We've had 2 international companies, both from Italy. They've got a footprint here. They haven't been overly active yet. We hope that they will. but they're at the chamber. They come here infrequently at this point, but we have that service available. So that's kind of something that we're going to look to build some more. And again, we can do that through the familiarization tours, getting involved with the country-specific chambers of commerce, and other things that we do at the chamber. Last year, we do an annual trip to Washington, and one of the things we did, we set up a briefing with the Chilean embassy because of our relationship with Chile in terms of imports. We wanted them to know that there was a lot of interest at the port, clearly, but also from the business community to keep the Chilean Delaware connection going and going strong. So those are some of the things that we do to try and promote international activity and also regionalism. And again, there's opportunities for you all to kind of plug in, learn about it, and get involved in that regional sense, which will then lead you to international. So, thank you.
We have been given an extra 5 minutes for questions. So, any on the floor? I skipped someone before. I cut someone off. So.
Mark, when the chamber comes to mind, the first thing you think of locally are the mixers that the chamber does. And I know that's a pretty big part. There's a number of events that the chamber holds throughout the years that are like that. What are other things besides the mixers that local businesses can really get involved with and kind of expand their network, maybe on a more intimate basis, or to really foster the referral type of business?
Well, a couple of things. I think first of all, the networking is really important. Social media is huge, and you need to be in that space, but there's nothing like face-to-face and the whisper campaign. So getting out and pressing the flesh and meeting people are important. I think looking at where you network and how you network is important. It's not just going out passing out business cards. You have to build up a relationship with people. They need to understand what you do. You need to understand what they do. And it's kind of this pay-forward concept. If they're on the lookout for you, you're on the lookout for them, and you can work together. Some of the other things that we've gotten into with the Chamber in the recent last couple of years has been more on the economic development side. We have a project in a program in Newark called the Greater Newark Economic Development Partnership, where basically we're bringing together as many businesses as we can in Newark to understand what the opportunities are going to be in Newark with the Star Campus at the university and some of the other properties there. The university and the city and the chamber have entered into a marketing agreement where we're actually marketing Newark in the region and hopefully the world. We haven't gotten to international yet. Greater Newark, that's what we call it, Greater Newark DE, it all adds up, is the tagline. In fact, last night we had an event at Bloom where we brought a lot of the larger companies together so they could get a briefing to understand what's happening at Bloom Energy down in Newark. Similarly, we've started a new initiative here in Wilmington called the Wilmington Business Leaders Network. Clearly, there's a lot of challenges here in Wilmington right now, but there's also a ton of opportunities. And one of the things that we think at the Chamber is that we just don't have enough people talking about the right stuff. So just like the Charleston Chamber did 250 years ago or whatever, we're bringing people together here in Wilmington to talk about some of the issues and how to go about fixing them. One of the issues we'll be addressing in June is we're going to have a session to talk about barriers and opportunities in real estate that will help create jobs in Wilmington. But what we're looking for is the input of the businesses to talk about what those issues and opportunities are. And then what we do is we kind of take that stuff and commence to do the heavy lifting. So those are some opportunities for businesses to get involved.
I have a question for all of you on that topic. I think when we talk about Delaware being part of the largest Philadelphia area, we run the risk of people thinking we're a suburban enclave of Philadelphia, and that's all we are. Is there a point about Delaware when you talk to people outside this area that perks people's ears up? You say, in Delaware we have, that makes them realize that we are different from just being a suburb of Philadelphia, and that we have access to things that maybe you couldn't get elsewhere.
I think the two things that come to my mind before not the obvious one of no sales tax is that one is our proximity to be able to get back to Philly. You can get to downtown Philly from right here in like 20 minutes, well, on a good day, 25 minutes, as you could from Bucks County. And again, it's kind of that suburban thing. But so there's the proximity, but it's also the proximity to get to the beach or the Delaware or the Jersey Shore, or get to DC, or get to New York. The other piece is here the diversity of housing that is available in New Castle County is pretty phenomenal when you go and look at the other suburban communities in and around Philadelphia. And the employers, there's a lot of large employers in this state that people don't know about. So I think those are some things that really rise to the top.
Internationally speaking, the thing that gets attention the most is access to the politicians.
And one other thing, access is big, and this is a little bit of a tip too, and it goes back to the tax-free shopping. Tomorrow is the grand opening of Cabela's. Do not go near the mall. It will be, you wait till you see what happens, it's going to be phenomenal. So anyone who follows music, remember the Grateful Dead and all the Deadheads that used to follow that, this Cabela's. Then they go to all the openings, and it's a phenomenal thing. If you haven't been to the store, well, don't go tomorrow.
Or
Go tomorrow.
Or if you have a lemonade
I was
stand.
going to say, you never know.
But it feels
I think we have one more question. I think I put some hands before I could say.
I have a question for Tom. Tom, if there was one infrastructure improvement that could be made to the port, which you think would be the most efficient in the way of dollars spent and the largest in the way of revenue that it would bring, what do you think it could be, and how long do you think it would take to happen?
Well, that's a great question. And I think we've, for us to grow as a port and to create more jobs in the region and to play a major role, let's say, to benefit from the dredging of the Delaware, deepening of the Delaware to 45 feet, and to take advantage of some of the spin-off business that's going to result from the Panama Canal expansion. I would have to say it's building a container terminal in the Delaware River. I mean, that's really where our growth lies for the future. We are pretty much at capacity now at the port. During the winter, during our high season, which usually runs mid-October to around now to mid-May, we're at capacity. Our refrigerated warehouses are full, our dry warehouses are full. We do have some land available for outside storage for commodities like steel, for example, or automobiles. But that's it. And to build additional warehouses on the port is a real challenge because of with additional warehouse comes additional business, comes additional truck traffic, and then how to organize that within our 308 acre footprint. But it's really the container business. It's I think the Port of Wilmington is best situated because we're the first on the river, we're 4 hours from the ocean. Those 3 additional hours are in fact 6 hours, which up and back from Philadelphia to Wilmington is considerable when you think about a ship, a big container ship that might cost $25,000 to $35,000 a day to operate. So if you can save those 6 or 8 hours in transiting up to Philadelphia and down, that adds up to a lot of money over the years and create a tremendous amount of jobs.
Well, thank you for coming out this rainy morning, and please join me in thanking Tom Keefer, Rebecca Faber, Mark Kleinschmidt for sharing their information with us. Thanks, guys.